Adding to her previous two books, Shameless and Do Not Go Gentle, writer Futhi Ntshingila is back with a new novel titled They Got to You Too. Well, the book follows the deeply humane and thought-provoking story of Hans van Rooyen, a former police general who finds himself being cared for in an old-age home by the daughter of liberation struggle activists. To shed more light on the book, let's welcome its writer, Futhi Ntshingila, and she joins us on Zoom. Futhi, good morning. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning, Lebo.
Tell us more about They Got to You Too. What inspired it and why was it important for you to tell the story now?
Right. So I wrote the story during COVID, the heavy lockdown last year. Initially, the story was on the women who survived the Anglo-Boer War, which is now called the South African War. But the story wasn't coming together nicely. So the idea of Hans came through just to show the generational transference of brainwashing that was happening. It starts with Hans in an old age home being cared for by Zoizondi. And with the lockdown, you can't escape the people that you lock down with. So they get to talk about their stories. Basically, it's an exploration of our South African history and the heads that happened to where we are now.
Mm-hmm. Now, the book centers around the character of Hans van Rooyen. Give us a brief breakdown of this interesting character and his development in the book.
Right. So Hans was raised by two women who survived the Anglo-Boer War. And his mother passed while he was while she was giving birth to him, and so he had to be looked after by the grandmother and one of the caretakers in the farms. And when his father came back from the World War I, he comes back and he chases the carer of the house and basically starts the brainwashing of Hans as the person who has all the power, who's defending his country as a white male in the South African context at that time, where people felt like they owned the country. But as he ages and he loses his power, and it becomes exposed basically that the power that he thought he had was based on a lie. Mm-hmm. And it's a generational, because then his son has this relationship with a black woman who gives birth to a biracial child who then gets kicked out of the family. So it's all the stories and all the regrets that he has about how he lived his life. Yeah. Because now he's closer to exit the air, basically.
Another interesting character in the book is Zoizondi. And I mean, I read somewhere where you say that Zoe's story is similar or familiar to you. Tell us more about this and what you were trying to do or say through this character.
Right. So Zoe grew up in the 80s, and whoever grew up in the 80s would know the type of violence that was happening in the township around that time. And she lost both her parents through the mother through the violence of the apartheid security police, and the father, who basically passed away later on from heartbreak. I think it's a story that many people adults now who grew up in the 80s can relate to.
Hans's story is an epitome of the saying, your past deeds will always follow you. Tell us about how you've used history to highlight current issues that we face as a country today.
Right. It basically shows that the body keeps the score, the memories keep the score of all the actions that Hans did. I mean, he fought in the border wars. He became a security police. He escaped the TRC, but he couldn't escape himself. basically. And I think this is what's happening with us as well. We have all these memories and all these actions that we can't escape unless we look into them, which is what he does towards the end.
And the themes of forgiveness and reconciliation feature prominently throughout the book. Tell us more about how you used the characters' backgrounds to highlight this, especially in the black and white setup.
Right. We tried with the TRC, and because it was a larger scale, it seemed that it didn't go much anywhere. So I had to look at it in a microcosm situation. And with lockdown, it sort of helped me to get these two people who can't escape, who have to sort of relate to each other. And I think, personally, I wasn't looking so much at the forgiveness, but at hearing Hans telling his story. In the book, Zoe actually doesn't offer much of what she thinks about what Hans is saying, but allowing Hans to actually say what he has to say, basically holding space for him to recall and reflect on the matters of the day.
I want to touch a little bit on the lighter themes and issues that you highlight in the book. I mean, friendship, family, love, family bonds. Tell us more about these and other themes that you explore.
Yes, because the main theme is quite heavy. It was important to sort of look at other lived experiences that we have that sort of soften some of the heartbeats that we have to deal with. I like music, so there is a bit of reflecting on music. Zoe has a friend who's a jazz singer. Hans, during the time of infiltrating the houses of liberation struggle, he listened to quite a lot of jazz music that was going on there. I think it's a testimony as well to the art in terms of how, even during apartheid and during the liberation struggle, people had to find ways to have an outlet and deal with smaller things that sort of make life more bearable.
Now, this being your third novel, how was the writing process in comparison to the other two?
I think COVID and lockdown really gave me time to write without feeling other pressures and also have no distractions. So I think with this one, I actually enjoyed the process more than the other two, because the other two, you work full time and you have to write late at night. With this one, it basically gave me a routine as well, because I wasn't at work. So I would wake up at 8 o'clock, like I would go to work and, do the writing and give myself breaks in between of lunch and then going back into it. So I think I really enjoyed this one more than the other two.
Now, speaking of being awake at night, is there like a fourth novel that is in the pipeline that's haunting you?
It's still in very initial stages. So I try not to talk about my work until, there's something in it.
Lastly, what is it that you want your readers to take away from this particular body of work?
When Mamsindi Magona was reviewing the book, she actually said there's no message in this book except to look and observe the interrelatedness that we have as human beings. So if anyone reads the book and finds that it's just made them think, it's thought-provoking, then I'm happy, then I've done my job.
And the title?
Just a quick one to explain that I'm actually having a live launch at Brooklyn Mall on Tuesday. So
what's the time
anyone
on that?
is around Pretoria, they're welcome to come through.
What time?
6 o'clock.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Good luck with the launch. That was writer and author of Shameless and Do Not Go Gentle, Futhi Ntshingila. And she just joined us for a discussion about her third novel, They Got to You Too.